All right, welcome back. We're talking more Niner football. Larry Krueger with you as we get you ready for the 49ers and the Carolina Panthers. And today, our special guest from Charlotte, North Carolina, with the Niners taking on the Carolina Panthers, Baker Mayfield and company out in Charlotte. Kyle Bailey joins us from WFNZ in North Carolina. He does pre and post for the Panthers and the Hornets out there, and he's with us to give us a little breakdown on how Carolina's looking. Kyle, thanks for a few minutes.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It also just occurred to me that I'm doing a Bay Area podcast while wearing an LA Dodgers hat, so I apologize. I probably shouldn't be doing that.
Well, you know what? This is no problem at all. Let's talk a little bit about the Panthers. You know, I watched a lot of their game this week against Arizona, and what jumped out to me was just that Baker Mayfield, I think, is a decent quarterback. I know there are people that are going to be really critical of Baker, but I just see a quarterback that is not really he hasn't done the reps with any of these receivers. So you're not getting the best of DJ Moore. They just brought in Chenault. They're probably not getting the best out of him. They're not getting the best out of Smith or Anderson or really any of their receivers. Just because it just doesn't seem like Baker's quite in sync with them. Am I misreading that? What's your read up close?
I would shift a little bit more of the blame to Baker Mayfield personally. Okay. You know, I understood maybe in that first week against Cleveland, some people made the case that, you know, he had split reps in the preseason with Sam Darnold, and, you know, he should have been given more of a chance to foster chemistry, and I guess that was fine. But here we are going into week 5, and all these guys do is play football. We shouldn't be seeing them get worse offensively, and that's what it looks like. You know, Baker's footwork is bad. He's inaccurate. He's missing wide receivers, and the wide receivers haven't been perfect, but the last 2 weeks or so, especially, they've been a heck of a lot better. So, you know, it's an interesting, and maybe interesting isn't the right word. The pairing of Baker Mayfield and offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo is really interesting because Ben McAdoo did not think all that highly of Baker Mayfield coming out of the draft in 2018. Did not think that he was going to make for a pro-style quarterback, didn't see enough pro-style on his tape, and thought he was small and so on and so forth. And then lo and behold, they end up together with the Carolina Panthers. And Baker, who has already led the NFL in batted passes since he got to the NFL, has only seen that number go up since he got here. He's on pace to blow out that record right now, quite frankly. So, you know, but it's not all Baker. I think some of the blame does belong with Ben McAdoo for not running the football at times. And, you know, Matt Rule's the head coach, so it's all going to fall in his lap. But, you know, the offensive line's playing well. The wide receivers have improved. Christian McCaffrey's gone for over 200 or over 100 yards rushing twice already. So I think you're looking at an offense that simply needs Baker Mayfield to play better.
You know, there's so many. You see these polls and these, you know, odds that get circulated around the country. Who's going to be the first NFL coach fired? And Matt Rule, a lot of time, is at or top that list. Is he under fire there? Is he coaching for his gig? Is he on the verge of being dumped? I mean, what can you tell us?
Oh yeah, no. Matt Rule's been under fire for over a year now. You know, that first season, 2020. Anyone who's reasonable or willing to be fair would say, okay, there's only so much you can put into the 2020 season when you judge a coach, right? No training camp, truncated preseason. Everything about that season was difficult, restricted, limited. I throw it out. I do. They won 5 games, though, and they had a winning record through 5 games to start his very first season. And so going into year 2, naturally, you would expect that they could make some improvements. But after year 1, the problem here is the quarterback position. And the quarterback position here is why many people, myself included, think that Matt Rule will ultimately end up losing his job because they have just seen a revolving door of mediocre quarterbacks come through this place since Cam Newton left the first time. And so they bailed on Teddy Bridgewater after a single season. Then they trade a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th round pick to Sam Darnold with the idea of reclaiming him, and then put him in front of a worse offensive line last year. Christian McCaffrey gets hurt after 3 games. Fast forward, they lose 12 of 14 to close the season, and they win 5 games just like year 1. There were a lot of fans who wanted Matt Rule fired after year 2. The owner stuck with him, and here we are 1-3 through 4 weeks. So, his seat is hot. People here are fed up. They're tired of watching losing football. This is not the 49ers organization. I don't think you'd call what the Panthers fans have are outsized expectations, but they haven't seen postseason football here in going on 5 years, and they're pretty tired of it. So, yeah, Matt Rule's hearing a lot about his job security these days.
Interesting. How about Baker Mayfield as far as leadership? There was always talk about his maturity level, and and now he's in excuse me, he's in Carolina. Has he become the leader? Is he doing fewer commercials than he did in Cleveland? We see the spotty play and the passing issues, but how's Baker in the room with the guys?
So they'd know a bit more about that than I would. Baker as a leader, we've not heard anything publicly from guys that they dislike him or calling him out. There was a brief moment late last week when wide receiver DJ Moore was asked about the game broadcast and even some media comments about the wide receivers and quarterback not being on the same page. He sneered at that. He does not believe that, I don't think. And he's handled himself with dignity and class. He didn't throw his guy under the bus, but I think they are frustrated because of the way their quarterback is playing. And so then, beyond that, Baker goes to the podium on Sunday and, was asked if he heard the boos because they booed him loudly at Bank of America Stadium on Sunday. And he snapped back and said, did we go down and score a touchdown right after they started booing us? Yes. And that was his only answer. And so, he really got offended by that. And he also later talked about, not really caring about the fans booing. They were going to figure this out in the locker room, start winning games, and it was still going to be them. And so that me against the world mentality is back. I don't know how the locker room views him right now. They're saying the right things publicly, but those guys have to be frustrated by his play.
What do you think of the rookie left tackle at NC State? I thought he looked incredible in the draft, in the ramp up to the draft. How's he played?
Better and better each week. His first week, we knew there was going to be a bit of a baptism by fire. When you first NFL game, you're facing Myles Garrett on one side and occasionally get switched off on a Jadeveon Clowney. That's a heck of an introduction into the NFL. But he's held up well and has gotten better each week. Sunday in the loss to Arizona, I believe he had 40 pass blocking snaps, no sacks allowed, just one quarterback hurry. There aren't many, even as big as NFL offensive linemen are, there aren't many guys built like Ike Ekwonu. He's just a dump truck of a man. He's massive. And so he got to the league already fully capable of being a run blocker at a pretty high level in this league. They knew the pass blocking was going to take a little bit of time, but so far he's moving in the right direction. That arrow is pointed in the right direction.
How about Christian McCaffrey? Obviously, there's a lot of Stanford fans in the Bay Area and people that are keenly aware of how talented he is. But, it seems like, he's a kid who runs upright and he takes a lot of hits and he's had a lot of injuries. How's he faring physically coming into this one?
So, by all accounts, he's healthy. They flirted with disaster a bit last week late, quad injury that could have kept him out, but he played. Didn't get a ton of usage, but he did play. He got 8 carries, I think, in that game. So by all accounts, right now, he's healthy. The news today, actually, there was a report from the Draft Network, maybe one other place, that Christian McCaffrey could be on the trade block before the November 1st deadline, which I'm not sure about because he carries like an $18.3 million cap hit if he were to be traded. Only but so many teams who would even consider doing such a thing. So I'm not sure the validity of that, but he's healthy. And there is a conversation today about, okay, if they can't start to turn things around after a 1-3 start, is now the time with a likely, coach firing and, all these quarterbacks coming off the books at the end of the season. It might be the time if it starts to go in the toilet to go ahead and trade Christian McCaffrey if there's a suitor out there.
Well, he's a great talent. There's no question about it. It's all about health. Can he stay healthy? Let's flip the card and talk about the defense. What is the strength, or who is the strength of this Panther D in your mind?
Brian Burns on the edge is a menace. Derek Brown in the middle is playing some of his best football. They picked up a couple of veterans in Matt Ioannidis and Henry Anderson up front who've been good. J.C. Horn, their number 8 overall pick, first-round pick from 2 years ago, is back to form, playing like a top 10 pick. This defense is it's still a little unorthodox, right? Phil Snow has still shown us a lot of college principles. They are blitzing a lot right now, effectively so, but they have had some trouble getting home with just a 4-man rush. And so some of those questions still need to be answered. But overall, this defense has been more than good enough. They've done it.
We may have lost Kyle there for just a second. Maybe was up. There we go. We got you back.
I apologize. You mean to start over there or keep going?
Yeah, go. You can start over. We can edit it together.
Okay, so you've got Brian Burns, who is a menace off the edge. Derek Brown's playing like a top 10 pick. So is J.C. Horn. The secondary's been overall good. Shaq Thompson's reliable there in the middle. I wouldn't call this the 85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens defense, but it's very good. It's a playoff caliber defense, which is where the frustration lies with the Panthers fan base right now, because you've got a defense playing winning football, dominant at times. You've got special teams that has been highly effective, and at times the running game has shown us that, it's as good as we thought it could be. So essentially, it's 2.5 of the 3 phases of football that have been good for the Panthers so far this year, good or improving. The passing game has just been so non-existent, ineffective, that it's torpedoed a couple of games there. So no one here has high hopes that Baker and the offense are going to get right against that Niners defense. That said, there is a belief here that the Panthers defense can give Jimmy G and Debo and the Niners offense fits on Sunday. So I'm looking for a low scoring game.
Do you think Carolina ever considered an offseason move for Garoppolo? Where do you think Garoppolo was in their thinking when Matt Rule was going through the quarterback options? Or do you think, they just didn't really consider him and there wasn't interest? Carolina seems like often was one of the teams kind of mentioned in the mix for Garoppolo, but I don't know how much validity there was to any of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that there were at least some conversations over there, and you can count me among those that was in favor of trading for Jimmy G if things worked out well. But I think that the urgency of Matt Rule going into year 3 and needing to win, and Jimmy coming off of surgery, and that lingering into the summer probably scared them off. If you were talking about, a healthy Jimmy G that would have been ready to throw with new teammates and be out there for OTAs and minicamp in the spring, early summer, that probably is a much more realistic possibility for them. I think the shoulder injury, the rehab, and that timeline pushed them off of Jimmy G a lot more than it would have otherwise.
Couple last ones for you. DJ Moore. DJ Moore, really a very consistent player, but he's had a very quiet beginning to this year. Is he dinged up? Is he not 100%? Is he not adapting to the offense? Does he not have a good rapport with Baker? I really would have thought DJ Moore would have kind of gotten untracked by now, but it just hadn't seemed to happen.
So would we. That's where I go back to DJ Moore's frustration late last week, where you can turn on the tape. He's been open. Baker's missed him a lot, and either hasn't thrown his way or just outright missed him with the football. He got, I think, six targets in week 1, if I'm not mistaken, against Cleveland. And then we looked up a week or 2 later, he had 2 targets in that game. It's unacceptable. And that's where, some fans, especially, there've been a lot of Cleveland fans that have followed Baker to Carolina, especially those that, were not happy with the decision to trade for Deshaun Watson. And, even some of them have said, hey, these problems go back to Cleveland, obviously with the Odell Beckham Jr. situation, his father making that tape. And I'm not saying that Baker is purposefully ignoring DJ Moore. I don't think that that's true. But I do think that DJ Moore his numbers have suffered with the arrival of Baker Mayfield, because if you look back, DJ Moore was still putting up 1,000-yard seasons and good numbers with Cam Newton and Kyle Allen, and Teddy Bridgewater was finding him. Sam Darnold would go to him. This is I hate to pile on Baker because it's nothing personal here. This is a Baker issue, and I think DJ Moore is suffering because of that.
Yeah. How about Jeremy Chin? I know he's hurt. He is one of my favorite young players to watch in the league. This guy's just a tremendous instinctive player, physical, fast, but he's not ready to roll. What's his injury?
Hamstring, I believe. It happened about midway through Sunday's game, maybe early second half. Miles Hartsfield came in for him. We all kind of knew then it wasn't good. Sounds like this week that they're planning on him missing a little bit of time, maybe a couple of weeks. I don't expect to see him out there against San Fran on Sunday. He is a stud. There's been a lot of conversation here about whether or not he belongs at safety or outside linebacker, because he seems to be a better fit and more effective closer to the line of scrimmage. Really good against the run, very physical, not quite as good in coverage, but he is a very good football player, and they're probably going to miss him.
How much are they using Horn strictly on the right side, or does he move around with an opponent's top receiver? I mean, I really loved him at South Carolina. He's a tremendous talent, great length. Do you expect him to be on Debo wherever Debo goes, or is he going to man that right corner spot and stay at right corner?
Hard to say. They moved him around a bit. We've seen him blitzing off the edge quite a bit so far this year. He's a bigger guy. You might think you don't want to necessarily blitz your top cover corner off the edge, and a lot of coaches and guys would tell you don't want to. But he's a big guy, and he's been effective. He's batted down some passes, very athletic, good tackler. So he's mostly going to be in coverage. I'm sure he's going to be in the neighborhood of Debo as often as he can be, but they're going to use him all over the place.
How about the big D lineman? I loved him at Auburn, Derek Brown, and he went high in the first round, and now he's playing next to Ioannidis, who's a really really tough workman-like player, and they've got some nice edge pieces. But how's Derek Brown? Does he command double teams consistently? How's he look for you guys?
Yeah, no, he's having a career year so far. A lot of questions about him after late last year. He kind of disappeared a little bit, but so far so good. He was outright dominant against the Saints a couple of weeks ago. So Derek Brown looks like the Derek Brown that they thought he would be when they drafted him.
Last one. Give us your perspective on the 49ers. Obviously, 49, when you're covering your one team, you're just so immersed in it that you start to lose perspective. And sometimes it's interesting to get the out of town perspective on the team that you're looking at every day. Give me your perspective on the 49ers from afar.
Tough to beat. These two teams have history. Once upon a time, they were in the West together. So, they're respected. There's no question about that around here. The defense is what we know is the calling card and why folks around here are not optimistic given the way the offense is played. But, I'm a big Jimmy G fan, obviously a big Evo fan, being from around the region. I respect what Kyle Shanahan does. And, I think Trey Lance has a bright future, and you hate to see a kid get hurt. But I'm sure the conversation out there was the same as it was here, albeit to a much lesser extent when he got hurt. Terrible for him individually. Short term, though, for your team, might turn out better. Like I said, a big Jimmy G fan, and I think he's going to have his hands full with this defense on Sunday. My concern, though, is that this offense is going to continue to be so ineffective that it's just going to continue. They're just going to give Jimmy G ample opportunity to hurt them late in the game with so many possessions, as we've seen already this year.
Kyle, before we let you go, the hurricane kind of blew through that part of the world, and I've got friends in North Carolina who said, you know what, it was more like 90 miles away. It didn't really hit me. But I know there were an awful lot of people in that region of the country that were really affected by it. What is the mood out there as this game approaches? Do you expect a packed house? Are people still kind of reeling from the hurricane activity? I know it's hurricane season, right? So that means that they dodged a bullet on this one possibly, but another one could be coming. What's the vibe out there?
No impact here. We got the remnants of the storm, some rain, some wind, but this was more about Florida and the low country of Georgia and South Carolina. About 3 hours from here. Again, we got wind of 30, 40 miles an hour. We got rain. Most of us didn't even lose power. Even the eastern side of the state didn't take too much impact. So this is largely about Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. So all is clear here, and all should be good for Sunday.
Sounds good. And you got a prediction on the final? What do you think it's going to be? You think Carolina pulls an upset? I mean, it's the NFL. It's the bounce of a ball. No, you don't. You don't see that. You see the 49ers.
No, I've got San Francisco 23-10.
Wow. You don't think Carolina's offense is going to be able to do a whole lot against this defense?
They're averaging 53 plays per game, and Baker Mayfield is statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL by a country mile, so it's hard to expect much.
Kyle, promote what you do on WFNZ. If people want to check out your show during the week, tell them where they can find it.
Absolutely. 2 to 6 Eastern every weekday, Monday through Friday here on WFNZ, Charlotte Sports Leader. And then pregame Carolina Panthers up the street outside the stadium each and every Sunday. And Charlotte Hornets pre and post game. So all that's starting up right now. Crazy sports season is here.
Yeah. I know it's a big college hoop town. I've been out there. College hoop area. How are the Hornets now in this kind of second go-round?
But I got to jump. My wife's calling me. We're running up on.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Yeah,
hey, Kyle, thanks again.
Yep, have a good one.
We appreciate you coming on. Kyle Bailey from WFNZ in North Carolina, the pre- and post-game host for the Carolina Panthers. All right. That does it for this edition of the Krueg Show. We've got more straight ahead today. Check us out throughout the day. But before we do any of that, let's have a word from our sponsors.
Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environment. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure you use telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal retirement planning specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com, or at his number 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your principal retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. And thanks to Tony Cassera and the good people at Cassera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Cassera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Often imitated, never equaled.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, you know, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never going to deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
Hey, do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
All right, welcome back. Thanks to Kyle Bailey from WFNZ Radio, the pre- and post-game host for the Carolina Panthers. All right, that does it for this edition of the Krueg Show. We have more straight ahead. We're going to be at Niner Camp later today. We'll do a live stream later tonight, bringing to you, 49er fans, a lot of the 49er content that we get today at camp. So have a great rest of your day, and we will see you later today for another edition of the Krueg Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle.